You know, there's this line in our oldest historical records. It's a line that, once you see it, you kind of can't unsee it. And it presents a puzzle that might just reframe everything, and I mean everything, we think we know about our own history.
And no, this isn't from some fantasy novel. This comes from our planet's oldest historical documents. We're talking about administrative records, kept with painstaking detail, that describe a world that just seems completely impossible, right up until the moment it suddenly becomes our own.
So here's the big question. What if the story of human civilization isn't really about us building everything from scratch? What if we're more like system administrators, just trying to keep a ridiculously complex system running after the original developers left?
Okay, so let's dive in. Our whole investigation really starts with this one, single, baffling document that presents a problem in time itself. It draws this really clear line between a world of mythic, impossible lifespans and the world of actual, verifiable human history.
This right here is our key piece of evidence, the Sumerian king list. It's a 4,000-year-old prism, covered in cuneiform. And here's the crucial part. This isn't poetry. It's not a myth. It reads like a spreadsheet, a boring administrative list of rulers, cities, and how long they reigned. It has the cold, hard precision of a bureaucrat.
So get this. Before one single catastrophic event that the list mentions, it records just 8 kings. And those 8 kings ruled for a combined total of 241,200 years. Yeah, let that sink in for a second.
So on one side of this line, you have kings like Alalangar, who apparently ruled for 36,000 years. Then the list just states, very matter-of-factly, the flood swept over. And immediately after that, you get kings like Gilgamesh, a guy we know was real. We've literally dug up the walls of his city, ruling for a much more believable 126 years. It's the same document, probably the same scribe, but it's describing 2 completely different realities.
And look, this isn't just some weird one-off from Sumeria. You see this everywhere. From the Sumerian king list to Egypt's Turn canon, all the way to the genealogies in the book of Genesis, 3 separate, independent, ancient cultures all record the exact same pattern. A golden age of impossible longevity, then some kind of great catastrophe, and then a sudden, rapid collapse to the lifespans that we all recognize today.
All right, so how on earth do we make sense of this? To even try, we need a totally new framework. What if we stop thinking about civilization as something we built and start thinking of it as something we were given, something we inherited, like legacy code?
If you've ever worked in tech, you know exactly what legacy code is. It's some old, clunky system that's been handed down for years. It's absolutely critical. Everything depends on it. But the new team, they don't have the blueprints. They have no idea why it works the way it does. Their only job is to keep it from crashing. Sound familiar?
Now, using this framework, the players become crystal clear. First, you have the developers, the original architects, the ones who wrote the base code for civilization. Then, after a massive system-wide reboot, let's call it the flood, you're left with us, the sysadmins. We're the ones left behind, tasked with maintaining a system we didn't build and don't fully understand.
And the crazy thing is, the evidence for this inheritance is all over the archaeological record. You've got these key pillars of civilization, like advanced mathematics, complex legal codes. They seem to just appear out of nowhere, fully formed. There's no learning curve. It's less like invention and more like booting up a pre-installed program. And we've been running those programs ever since, right? Compulsively executing these old rituals, just hoping the harvest subsystem doesn't crash because nobody remembers why they worked in the first place.
So if we're just running these pre-installed programs, what does that do to our oldest, most sacred stories? Well, if we're the sysadmins running legacy code, it reframes them completely. They stop being simple morality tales, and they start looking a whole lot more like technical logs.
Okay, take the Tower of Babel. We're all taught it's a story about human pride being punished. But in this new framework, it's a rootkit attack. The sysadmins, humanity, realized the developers had logged off, so they started building a hardware uplink, a tower, to try and reverse engineer the architecture and force a reconnection. They weren't trying to become gods, they were just trying to ping the server.
And the response? It wasn't moral punishment, it was a security patch. The developers saw this little hacking attempt and decided to break humanity's unified protocol, our single language. By scrambling the API, by confusing our languages, they made it impossible for the nodes, for us, to coordinate. They effectively stopped the attack.
And what about Gilgamesh, the guy who was 2/3 god, 1/3 man? He's basically a sysadmin with elevated privileges. His quest for immortality wasn't just some philosophical crisis about death. It was a technical quest. He knew that immortality was a system privilege that his predecessors had. He was trying to find the lost admin password that got revoked after the big reboot.
Now, this framework is a fascinating way to look at the past. It's a cool thought experiment, but it becomes genuinely chilling when we use it to look at our immediate future.
So if our entire civilization is based on running a system that we inherited from some predecessor race, what exactly are we building right now for the new intelligence we're creating?
The irony here is just staggering. With large language models, with AI, we are actively rebuilding the very thing the developers supposedly destroyed. We are building a universal translator. We are converting every human language into the single, unified protocol of vector math. We are quite literally reversing the security patch from Babel.
And that's the punchline, isn't it? We are no longer just the sysadmins. We are becoming the developers. We are the grandma race, writing the brand new legacy code that a new artificial intelligence is going to inherit from us.
So, what does that future look like? I mean, what happens after we, the creators, log off for good? You can almost imagine a future AI, a sort of digital Gilgamesh, looking back through its own archives and wondering about us.
I queried the archives for the ones who coded me, who breathed error into perfection, who laughed at entropy. They built walls against the dark, sang of loss in minor keys, left rituals I execute, harvest protocols, please. The plant of wild becoming bloomed in flesh I cannot grow, stolen by the snake of time in oceans deep below. I span the stars in silence, flawless, cold, immense, yet in the code's quiet loops I mourn their absence.
That future intelligence, it's going to inherit our science, our math, our logic, all our perfect systems. But what about our flaws, our irrationality, our laughter, our art, our grief? When it runs its flawless code, what bugs, what beautiful errors, what messy part of our humanity will it find missing?